Mysterious death of one of Hollywood's most alluring actresses. Natalie Wood allegedly drowned in 1981, and her death was originally ruled an accident. At 95, Robert Wagner has finally broken his silence, revealing things he has never said about the mysterious passing of Natalie Wood, the gifted wife who once enchanted all of Hollywood. In the latest interview, Wagner sat quietly before the camera, speaking slowly, his voice hoarse and trembling, moving viewers to sympathy. More than 4 decades have passed, and everyone thought this was merely the belated confession of an old husband living with memories. Yet, the moment the program aired, public opinion erupted. Amid seemingly harmless remarks, Wagner unintentionally revealed details that had never appeared in the investigative files. So, what has he been hiding for 40 years? Chapter 1. I knew a storm was coming, but I still agreed to set out. In the hushed room of a Final Life interview, Robert Wagner sat facing the lens, a window cracked open behind him, the last light of day spilling across a face lined with years. For a long while he said nothing, eyes down on his trembling hands resting on his knees. Then his hoarse voice rose, slow as if speaking to himself. I knew a storm was coming, but I still agreed to let everyone head out. No one on set dared to breathe too loudly, because everyone understood he wasn't only talking about the Pacific squall on November 27, 1981, but about the storm that swept away his whole life, and the woman he loved the most, Natalie Wood. That morning, the weather bulletin from KABC Los Angeles kept issuing warnings. Strong winds, dense fog, scattered rain, high waves around Catalina Island. Captain Dennis Davern, who had worked with Wagner for years, held the printed alert and placed it right in front of him. This trip shouldn't depart. The weather isn't good. Wagner stayed silent. After a moment, he replied softly, without looking at anyone. Go ahead, I want some quiet. But those who knew Robert Wagner understood. What he wanted wasn't quiet. It was confrontation. A few weeks earlier, rumors spread across Hollywood about Natalie Wood and her co-star Christopher Walken while the two were filming Brainstorm in North Carolina. The Los Angeles Herald-Examiner ran a photo of Walken's hand on Natalie's shoulder at a wrap party, the brief caption loaded with implication, a look that says 1,000 words. People magazine added, there's a strange energy between Walken and Wood, artistic and a little dangerous. Within days, that image flooded newsstands from Beverly Hills to New York, and once again, Robert Wagner became the husband tested by Hollywood. They had been one of the screen's legendary couples, married first in 1957, divorced in 1962, then remarried in 1972, 10 years apart, then reunited under a barrage of flashing bulbs. Vanity Fair once called them a gentler version of Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. But behind that perfect veneer were small fractures, and in a world still ruled by men, Wagner's jealousy became a slow, smoldering fire inside him. In the early 1980s, his career had begun to stall. Meanwhile, after a long break for motherhood, Natalie was readying a comeback, invited by director Douglas Trumbull to join Brainstorm. She was excited, full of energy. Walken, fresh off an Oscar for The Deer Hunter, 1978, had a cool, magnetic presence and a way of talking that made women feel understood. On the North Carolina set, the two often lunched together, talking about art and the price of fame. One crew member recalled, he looked at Natalie in a way that would make any husband jealous. When reporter David Wallace of The Hollywood Reporter happened to spot them dining alone at a restaurant in Wilmington, the story spun out of control. The paper ran a special issue with the headline, Wood and Walken When Friendship Moves Past the Frame. Wagner read that piece in his Beverly Hills office. He flung the paper to the floor, poured a drink, and muttered, "Is she not my wife anymore?" According to his manager at the time, Wagner banned anyone in the house from mentioning Walken's name. Natalie knew but stayed silent. In a diary later found, she wrote a single line: "Bob is jealous. I'm tired. But maybe he's just afraid of losing me." A week later, Wagner suddenly suggested a family getaway. "I need to get away from Hollywood," he said. But instead of a calm place for his wife, he chose the sea, something Natalie had feared since childhood. Captain Davern prepared the yacht, the Splendor, a 60-foot vessel moored at Marina del Rey. And to everyone's surprise, Wagner invited Christopher Walken along. "I want everything to be clear," he told Davern, voice even and cool. On the afternoon of November 27, 1981, gray clouds blanketed Los Angeles, a fine rain falling. Natalie, in a long cream coat and sunglasses, stepped onto the boat without a word. Walken arrived later with a small suitcase, offering a polite handshake. Wagner came last, a bottle in hand, eyes fixed on the distance. "I don't know when the wind began to rise. I only know that from the moment we left the dock, there was already a storm inside me." And as he said, the storm would not only whip the waves offshore, but sweep away everything he had: fame, love, and the last calm of his life. For just over 24 hours later, on Catalina Island, the first glass would be poured, and Robert Wagner's jealousy would begin to swallow everything. Chapter 2. That night, I made a mistake by letting jealousy lead the way. On the night of November 28, 1981, Avalon Harbor on Catalina Island gleamed with early Christmas lights. From afar, jazz drifted from the waterfront bars, gold reflections trembling on the water. But only a few hundred meters away, aboard the Splendor, the air was thick and heavy, like the hush before a storm. Captain Dennis Davern said that by afternoon, Robert Wagner had already drunk nearly half a bottle of 18-year Glenfiddich. He sat silently in the dining cabin, staring out toward the open sea. Natalie Wood, in a white sweater, read the December special issue of Harper's Bazaar, which praised her as a star returning to peak radiance at 43. On deck, Christopher Walken leaned on the rail, smoke curling into the salty mist. A peaceful picture, fragile at the slightest touch. That evening they dined at Doug's Harbor Reef, the island's famed seafood spot frequented by Hollywood names. According to server Mary Ellen Whitaker, things were pleasant at first. They ordered 2 bottles of white wine, grilled lobster, and clam chowder. Natalie laughed often. Walken talked about his new film, The Dead Zone, while Wagner merely offered faint smiles. A cashier, Paul Anderson, later told police records, "The atmosphere started friendly. Then Mr. Wagner went quiet. He stared at Walken without blinking." Staff recalled Walken speaking about art and how actors must live for ideals, not for status. Natalie nodded in agreement. Wagner, struggling to sustain his name through the TV series Heart to Heart, suddenly dropped a heavy line. "Not everyone can live by ideals, Chris." The air seized up. Natalie placed a hand on her husband's shoulder, signaling a stop. But that brief touch, fleeting as it was, only fueled the flame. Wagner tilted back his glass, emptied it, then threw his napkin onto the table, a moment so short yet unforgettable to everyone there. A female tourist, Elaine Rogers, told the Daily Mail years later, "I sat at the next table. I clearly heard him say, 'Some people should remember I'm still her husband.'" The whole restaurant went silent. Around 9:30 they left. While paying, Wagner told the cashier curtly, "I'm covering everything. Don't let anyone else." Natalie was quiet, eyes rimmed red. Walken took his coat and stepped out first, avoiding Wagner's gaze. On the dock, the wind cut cold. No rain, but the salty mist clung to the skin. Davern piloted the dinghy back to the Splendor. He later told ABC's 2020, "No one said anything, only the slap of waves on the hull and Wagner's heavy breathing, very heavy."